All right, Jacob Davenport, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course, long time no see.
It has been a while.
I think it's been, you know what? I think the last time I saw you, I was pregnant with my eldest son,
Uh-huh.
and you gave us our dog.
Yeah, a little Frenchie.
Oh my goodness, that's his baby right there. He
Still
is
kicking?
stubborn.
All right, that's Frenchies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that. I thought they were
Yeah.
cute and cuddly, but no, not
Yeah.
them. I mean, he's cute and cuddly. Don't get me
Uh-huh.
wrong, but he is so stubborn.
Of all the dogs, I mean, I've had many pets. Frenchies are cute, but they're like the smartest dumb dogs.
What I tell you, I literally there's things where I'm just like, what the heck?
Uh-huh.
But then other things I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah,
You know?
for sure.
He
for sure.
definitely has a personality, and yeah, he's a good dog. He's still with us. He's getting
That's
old.
good.
He's
That's
getting
good.
some white hairs though. You
Uh-huh.
know, he tries to boss all our dogs around. We got 6 now, including him. Yeah,
That's a full house.
full house.
Yeah.
But it's good to see you.
Likewise.
How have you been doing all these years?
I have been doing well. I think life has ups and downs, but I think that I think the older I get, the faster life kind of goes, right?
Yeah.
And but I've been really, really well. I've been truly blessed, working a ton, but well. And how about yourself?
Oh, good. You know what? Highs and lows. But I think overall, I feel like everything has been a blessing and has been in perfect alignment to the trajectory that I wanted for my life and the standards that I wanted. It's came with some losses that are ultimately blessings, but just part of the growing pains, I would say, you know. But overall, pretty good.
I'm totally aligned. And I think that one of the things I do want to say, I don't just naturally like throw off compliments. I mean, sometimes it's polite to say, "Oh, how are you doing?" But I think one of the things I wanted to tell you today and before today is that, I think your biggest skill set is people,
Yeah.
and you thrive and you receive your energy off people. And early on, when I really first saw you being more vocal and taking a position on like social media and being more connecting with individuals, I saw you heavily working with young ladies for a while, and it always seemed so natural. I do a little bit of social media myself, and so I see a lot of people say, "Hey, man, I'm trying to make money. I'm trying to turn this into a hustle."
Yeah.
Right. And never since the beginning or even till now was your message, your purpose received as a hustle or a thing or a fad. It was always, this is my purpose.
Yes.
And
Thank
so-
you so much. That is probably like the most top tier compliment that you can give me. I think one thing I've noticed is that a lot of people do get into like podcasting or, you know, the social media aspect of it in terms of a more serious note, you know, like the what's the word that I'm looking for? The motivational speaking. And they do think they're going to capitalize off of it very fast. But one thing that I tell my husband all the time is that naturally my whole life I've been very outgoing. And I feel like, I don't know what it is about myself, but people always feel very comfortable with me. And it's something that I love. Like I love to interact with people. And I didn't realize coming on to podcasting that was a natural skill set that I had and that I see kind of lack with other people that want to turn it into a hustle.
Right.
Because a lot of it is energetically reading your guests and kind of having, I don't want to say a control or a dominance, but just like a comfortability in that energy and talking to lots of people. And it's a lot harder than people would think.
Yeah.
You know, but
Yeah.
I appreciate that very much, and it is very authentic.
Yeah. It's there's something to be said about filling cups of others, right? Being of service.
Yeah,
They say like takers no givers.
yeah,
And so you are an individual that naturally, I think you get charged by pouring into individuals. And that's always very, very rare to see. And when you do see it, it's rare to see it as highest form. I think that the other thing that I found very interesting, and I reflect, I'm just telling you the truth,
Yeah.
right? Because you can learn from others very quickly if you're observant. Is like early on when I saw a lot of your messaging, you just kept populating on my TikTok, right? If someone did not know you, they would think you had a PhD, and maybe you do a PhD in certain topics, right?
yeah,
And Oprah Winfrey many years ago said this quote that I never forget: "Turn your wounds into wisdom."
yes,
And hurt people hurt people. So sometimes when we're hurt, we can do damage. We can go into the world, do drugs, do alcohol, or be abusive, or be verbal, be aggressive. And so, not knowing your complete story, but we've masterminded a few times. You have taken your whole life up into every point, into this point, and you turn that into wisdom, and then you turn it into pouring into people's cups. And then when you pour into people's cup, you glow. It's this thing.
You.
And so I just want to let you know that sometimes as I grow into whether it's public speaking or anything I'm doing, I always kind of reflect to the point when I saw you first, really taking this to a whole nother level of pouring into others, turning your wounds into wisdom, and just growing. And so it's powerful.
Thank you. That truly does mean a lot to me. A little fun fact that people don't know, I actually met you through the course of my testimony, my biological father. And that's been a journey in and of itself. But I even reflect on that and how wonderful it is to be able to begin to meet new people and network through even the smallest connections or who you know and whatnot. I think the hardest part of my journey, which you seem really good at from what I've observed on your social media, is that communicating with people on a more business front. You know, I feel like I struggled with that. That was probably my biggest fear coming and doing the podcast. I was like, the business aspect is a little bit nerve-wracking for me, but I think that's why I have my husband, and he's kind of the more like emotions out of it. I'm more purpose-filled. So that's something I really admire about you and what you do with your work. And speaking of that, I saw on your Insta, in your bio, it says real estate agent, investor, and networker. And I felt like that just perfectly sums up a lot of what you do. And we're going to talk about how you got into all of that from a business front. But before we do, take us back to your childhood. How did you grow up?
Yeah. I grew up, you gave me a phenomenal introduction. Jacob Davenport. I grew up in Sacramento. I am the sixth of 11 kids. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Big
single
family.
mom, 5 brothers, 5 sisters, huge family. I'm right in the middle. Spent a lot of my early years, like in Oak Park area, Midtown area. And then as I got into high school, we relocated to Elk Grove. I think that when I think of the one factor that I think was very different for me in the way I grew up, as opposed to some of my peers, and my observation was my mom. Like, even when we didn't have much, my mom always taught us you could do a lot with a little. You could do a lot with a little. And so even growing up in, I would say, more challenged areas, like many people, right?
Yeah.
Different challenges. My mom kept us in good schools. And even when we were going to schools like in our community that probably weren't the best of schools, meaning not great teachers,
Yeah.
right? But, education goes, right? In some schools, you have 35 students to one teacher. And then in private schools, it's 7 to 1.
Yeah.
And so if you've been a parent, you've been a manager, you've been in any place of leadership, you know that when you're diversifying yourself or allocating your energy to multiple people, it could be a challenge.
Oh, yeah.
And so I even remember, like, in first grade, the first day of school, my mom and went to the office and did a whole lot of talking, and they moved me from one class. I was in class for like 6 hours. They moved me to another class. In hindsight, she knew that this other teacher was maybe had some skill sets that could better fit my learning style.
Yeah.
And she would do that with all my siblings. And so growing up was it wasn't tough. It wasn't tough because my mom.
How wonderful to have a mom that attentive.
Yeah, and wonderful. And parents always say, when you have kids or when you grow up, it'll make sense.
Yeah.
And so just growing up kind of in tough situations and socially and economically depressed and distressed, I found I was very disappointed. Like, man, my mom didn't get me this, and we didn't get Jordans. I just remember as a young man being very frustrated. And as I become an adult, oh my gosh, I have so much grace and so much appreciation for my mom, because, like she said, you could do a lot with the little. And so you can have all the riches in the world and have nothing of value.
Yeah.
And so I'm so humbled and appreciative of her efforts or sacrifices and things she's done.
That is such a blessing. And I feel like that kind of mentality, I don't really see it that much anymore. Or maybe I just am not surrounding myself with, a lot of people who had parents that were that diligent. I know that I try to be. I think that's one of the biggest lessons that parenting taught me, is that each one of my children is different. they learn different,
Mm-hmm.
they receive different,
Mm-hmm.
and how I can support their individual needs to the best of what is good for them in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you have such a big family and your mom showed that attentiveness to each one of you.
Yeah.
I know it's hard. I got 4 and I'm like, ooh, I feel like I'm 4 different people in a day. You know what I mean? On top of, being a wife and life stressors and everything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
But it's wonderful to see that your mom's drive, I feel like also you inherited that as well. Because I feel like you're a very driven person.
I think so. I think that's
Oh,
fair.
I see it.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
How were you in high school?
In high school, academically or socially or what?
Both.
Academically, I was a C student.
Yeah.
Right. I was a C student. Probably could have did a whole lot better. But socially, searching, right? Searching for identity. I was like, man, do I want to be in a gang? Do I want to get the honeys? Do I want to get the money? And being a teenager is tough.
Yeah.
You learn because people have different things in their household. You take parenting and family and business and structure and time. You was early today, right? You take that very serious. So that gets passed on to your children, very like some of the things I grew into. And so when growing in high school, you see different friends doing different things. You don't know it's because of their parents putting this in them. And you're saying, well, look at home. For me, man, my mom, she doesn't have a job. We have Section 8. She's getting her welfare check. She's making that stretch. I remember there's this place by Buca de Beppo, off Arden, where you can like donate like plasma or blood, right? And I had never been there, but 21, I probably went to Buca de Beppo on a date or something like that. And I remember sitting in the car on a hot summer day when my mom went in there. So when I left dinner with this young lady years ago, I drove over and it's a infusion blood donation site.
Oh, wow.
So what my mom was doing is, you just bring this to my attention, she was donating blood or plasma or something, very likely because we didn't have any more money.
Yeah.
And so you were asking about high school. High school, just trying to figure out, where was I going to go with this? And in high school, I didn't figure it out.
Well, no, you know what? I don't think a lot of us do.
Okay. I felt alone there. I was like, I'm the only one.
No, in high school I was a hot mess. But I think that's actually one thing that I really try to reiterate to my children is, I tell them your frontal lobe isn't developed until you're 25. This whole childhood to adolescence to even early adulthood,
Right.
this is the part where you are growing and you're going through different phases. And you know what, even as an adult, right? There's different levels of life that require different versions of ourselves. Do we truly ever find ourselves, or do we adjust and adapt as life goes on and as different things happen? I mean, there's certain things to the core of who we are, right? But I think the journey of self-discovery, in a sense, is almost never ending.
Yes. Yes.
But it just feels particularly detrimental in high school because you have this assumption that you're supposed to have it all figured out. And then there's the pressure of what are you going to do after high school and college? And are you going to be successful? And what avenues do you want to go down? And that just adds another layer of like, who am I? And what do I want to be? How do I want to show up in the world?
Pressure.
Yes.
Pressure. A lot of pressure. It's tough.
How did you manage it?
I didn't. It was for me. You talk about life in different chapters. You have to become an adult at some point, right? You become a mother, you become a father, you become a leader.
Yeah.
That transition into adulthood. I think that one of the things, I have a 5-year-old. I want to keep her 5 as long as possible, and the 6 as long as possible, right? Keep her a young lady as long as possible. For me, 9th grade, I was going through adult transition. And I coined it that because I saw what I was going through at that time. A lot of my peers around like 21, 22, maybe some still today, are starting that transition of really having to be independent, think for yourself, make the decision, identify who you are going to be and what actions you're going to take. And so got in trouble, juvenile hall, 9th grade.
You went to juvenile hall?
Yeah.
What was that like?
I was in there on Halloween too. I'll never forget it.
Dang, you missed your Halloween.
I know. Well, that one was tricky. That was an interesting one because at the time, going through that a transitional period where mom's trying her best, but for me it wasn't enough, right? And so start selling weed.
Yeah. Do you feel like not having? I'm not sure how you didn't have your father.
Yeah.
But do you feel like that played a role?
I think yes.
Okay.
I know it is because I'm a mentor, and I'm a father to a daughter, but I'm also an adult male to a lot of young individuals. I do mentoring, and
Okay.
so young men need their fathers.
Mhm.
Your mother can only do so much.
Mhm.
Also, I think that young men need men,
Yes.
and I'll even go a layer deeper. I'm African American, so let me speak from my perspective. I think young black boys need older black men in their house, in their lives, but also Asian men, Chicano men,
Yeah.
white men. But you need to see, because if still to this day, if you ask most African American kids that are 10, what do you want to do when you grow up? I want to be an athlete. Well,
Mhm.
people do business with people they like or trust or feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
So when women go to the mall to go buy things, very likely it would probably make them more comfortable if they spoke about lingerie or fragrances with another woman, very
Yes.
likely, right? And so as being a young man and not having that present frequently, I think that that didn't help, right? It didn't
Mhm.
help. And what does it mean to be a man, or what does it mean to be a woman?
Mhm.
And how to I think a good man would teach you how to treat women.
Yes.
And so I don't think I've had a problem disrespecting women, but I know that those are some of the things I had to learn down the road, and some things could have been avoided.
Yeah. I asked because you said something, my mom couldn't, do it all and she was great, but there was still this side of me, right?
Yeah.
I think one thing that I've discovered in my journey is a lot of my adolescent life, I feel like I projected the void that I had in me
Mm-hmm.
of having an absent father onto my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I was unconsciously doing it. It wasn't something that I was aware of until I got older and dissected kind of that part of my
Right.
life. And I think a lot of that void that I felt and a lot of that, I guess, disconnect with self came from me always feeling like a part of me was missing. And so I was lashing out in these ways that were detrimental to myself during that time. And I can fully now say that I know that that was because of having an absent father.
Yeah. I totally agree with that experience. And you know what it makes me think about is in that journey, because I share a similar journey. I don't know if this next part you're familiar with, but for me, you start to go through that phase of identifying who you are and
Mm-hmm.
the absence of your father. Your friends have fathers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you're trying to understand that, and so much time takes place. You can turn 16 years old, and your father or mother wasn't in your life. You can't make up that time. But I think what happens is after that, when you go through this discovery process of understanding why that is and where do you go from here, you start to ask questions. You can ask your mom questions, and between her and your father, they could have had whatever they had. That's really none of our business.
Yep.
But we are experiencing the after effects of what took place or didn't take place. And as I grew and started asking a little bit more about my father and trying to close that loop, you'll see some people, to protect their own feelings, they'll silence you.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes it tougher. You start asking the questions, or you start being vocal, and they'll say, "You stay out of adults' business," or
Yeah.
or they'll rewrite a narrative, or if you ask a certain question, you don't make it seem like you're wrong,
Yeah.
right? And so people silencing you as you try to overcome those experiences, that probably adds to the trauma.
Oh, yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Definitely.
They're trying to tell you how you can feel about something. I didn't sign up for this,
Exactly.
but I do want to know what happened and where do I
Yeah.
go from here. Be quiet.
Yep. Yep. Or even I remember just being a kid and thinking to myself, if the adults could just be an adult about the
Uh-huh.
situation, you know what I mean? And I remember like vividly, I told myself, I'm going to grow up. And if I'm ever in this situation, I will never, ever make a child feel like they're the problem.
Mm-hmm.
This is for us adults to figure out, and we got to get it right
Mm-hmm.
for the sake of the obligation that we have to the children,
Mm-hmm.
because I know how it impacted me.
Mm-hmm.
I know how it impacted my siblings.
Mm-hmm.
I see that it affected each one of us in a negative light. And
Uh-huh.
had there been somebody that had the wisdom enough, and if there was at least leverage, I
Is it?
think things would have been better
Is
on
it?
if all parties.
Forgive me. You got me going. Is it? Is it? Words are important. Is it if somebody had the wisdom, or if somebody had the humility?
Both.
Because I mean, I think that the wisdom says like you have the knowledge to understand. The understanding is there. But I think a lot of times, because I'm a parent, And shout out to my daughter's mom. She's a phenomenal person. We do some great co-parenting, but there's times that we don't see eye to eye.
Yeah.
And I know always the right thing.
Yeah.
Now, am I going to have the humility to say, hey, it's not about me, or I want to be right? And so when I think about my upbringing, I think that what happens frequently, people get together and babies take place.
Yeah.
Right? And then there's two stories. Mm-hmm. And so everybody wants to protect their story that has grown over 10, 12, 15, 16 years. And so I don't know if I'm not playing with words, but I don't even think it's about wisdom. I think it's, are you going to be an adult and say, this is what I did wrong and this is what I need to do?
Yeah. No, I concede that word. Yes, you're right. It is about humility, because wisdom is the knowledge of knowing what you have to do. Humility is actually being able to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, see, I didn't have none of that humility.
Yeah.
No, I had it.
I gotta call them on. I gotta call them on it, because when we say like the wisdom, it's like maybe they didn't know.
No,
A lot of time, everybody knew, but you're mad at him, she's mad at you, and
you know what? Humility isn't a very easy emotion to embrace. Mm-hmm. It takes a lot of putting that pride down and stepping into the unknown.
Agreed.
If that humility is going to be received well, or if you're going to, people are going to use it to one up you or whatever, I understand that.
Because when you take the humble actions, a lot of times it's not probably what you would want to do. Like saying sorry might not be what you want to do. Or, my absent father, for me, my dad saying, hey, I could have did better. Yeah. Does he want to? He has said it, but does somebody want to say that, or is it easier to hide or stick to your story? Mm-hmm. Hey, I wasn't there because your mom said no, and your mom says, oh, he wasn't there because he's a piece of shit.
Yeah, and I think a lot too with humility and that level of accountability, it opens the door for trust. When you see someone get to a place of being that vulnerable and being accountable and having that introspection, you begin to build that trust that was missed out on for so long.
And it's respected too. Mm-hmm. It's respected. Mm-hmm.
I just want to apologize too if you guys are noticing that my voice is a little weird. The weather is changing it, and I'm like dealing with a dry throat.
that makes two of us. That makes two of us.
Well, I want to move on to what got you into real estate. Were you doing real estate when I met you? I don't remember.
Probably, yeah. I was probably, that was my early days of dabbling in it.
Okay.
And I probably started real estate in 2016, 17.
What got you into down the real estate path?
Yeah, what got me into real estate was I was having a hard time because, as I told you before, I've been previously incarcerated. Mm-hmm. And so I was having a hard time finding my niche or my position, and I didn't know my skill set. People will tell you, "Oh, you're a great speaker. You're this. You'd be doing great in sales." But for me, I was at a juncture probably around the time I met you. Is I was breeding French bulldogs and making some generous money at times, but I knew that wasn't it. I wasn't filled, and so I was kind of recruited to a brokerage in 2017. They was like, man, come check us out. We think you'll do well. One of the people that worked there, they watched me speak in college. Actually, I got chosen to speak in philosophy, and so that was pretty cool. And so I just got into real estate. A lot of what was going on in it was cool. None of it was even money.
Yeah, was it intimidating at all?
No, for me, no. For me, no.
I feel like when we were trying to buy our first home, I was looking at all this literature and all this language, and I felt intimidated.
Got you.
I was like, what does all this mean? I had to do a lot of research. I had a million questions. But
I didn't have anything to lose though.
Yeah.
Because all right, let me try to break it down real quick. Okay, so I got out of prison in 2014.
So you not only juvenile hall, prison time as well.
I figured, if I started there, I might as well take a trip around the moon.
Well, you know what?
I'm
Full circle.
I'm kidding. Poor decisions.
Yeah.
But it was a lesson and a blessing.
Yep.
Because in prison, That's where I received my associate in entrepreneurship, and I started learning risk. I understood business law and what is a tort, what is litigation, what is libel. I started learning these terms that I was studying in prison. And so when I got into real estate, it was almost like a natural progression of the growth of knowledge and business, really the philosophy of business, and less the transactions of it. And so also when I was introduced to real estate, some people that I meet, because I'll receive like a DM from somebody, they'll say, hey man, I want to get in real estate. Can you help me do it? I want to buy my first house in 5 years. I want to retire my mom. That was never my why. Like all of it was like, oh man, this is fun, right?
Oh, okay.
And I was breeding Frenchies at the time, and going to school as well. Financial aid was coming in once a semester, so I wasn't rich, but none of it was because of the money.
Yeah, and breeding is very tedious.
It is.
I give it to you. I had a dog that got pregnant, and I was like, never again.
Man,
never again.
It's very, very challenging. Very challenging.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
But I imagine, I mean, you're very, like I said, driven. So
thank you. So I no longer breed dogs, though.
No, but I'm sure you excelled at it during that time.
You know, there were some good times. There were some good times, and that I had that going on. That was probably the biggest thing I had done at that point, independently as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as an individual. So leaving prison in 2014, I'm breeding. 2016, I'm on parole though, and well-behaved individual, but parole is very tough. It's very, very tough
because of the regulations and like what you're allowed to do, or why?
I think the toughest thing is that you do your commitment to your prison term, and you think you're going to come out and then just start fresh. And so for me, with the parole system, they just check in frequently, and that's not the biggest problem, but it can be inconvenient. And so what was happening is I was going to Swimmers River College. They were like coming on campus. Are you sure you're in class? You sure you're in class? And that was like embarrassing, right? Because I'm trying to like
live right and do right.
Yeah, I'm putting a button up on to go to class and trying to have and grow into a different person. And that wasn't the hardest part. I think the hardest part was that it's always people, places, and things that tend to express everything about us. And just I still had the same people and places and things in my life at the time that were very risky. So when I decided to start in real estate, I lived in Sacramento, but the brokerage was in Stockton, and I had never been to Stockton. So I drove out there one day, I met with the broker, met with the whole staff, and it was pretty good. They welcomed me with open arms. And so here was my trick. I knew I still had like a year and a half on parole, and I didn't want to get in trouble. They'll pull you over, tear you out your car, stuff like that. I was like, all right, well, look, this is what I'll do. I'll go to Stockton, and then I'll work, or I'll do this internship from 8 a.m. to 5 every day. Then I'll come back home. Yeah. Plus, like, school was getting old in the tooth for me. I'm like, man, even if I get my degree as an X-ray tech, because of my background, they're not going to give me a job. And that was very, very disheartening. I feel like I was wasting my time. Yeah. So I was like, hey, I'll go out to Stockton. I'll learn from real estate. I won't get paid. I'll still keep breeding my dogs. I'll leverage myself. And in a year and a half, time will fly by. I'll be off parole. And at least I won't contribute to recidivism. I can't get caught in the car with somebody with a little joint. I don't smoke. Or any people, places, and things. I had came home and got into a fight at a club. Yeah. I wasn't starting it. But when they put me in handcuffs, I was like, oh, I am in so much trouble. Because that is a real charge, especially when you're on parole. So those are the things that where I was up against, and I had nothing to lose. In prison, this old guy named Mr. Lee, he said, Jacob, you probably never even been out of Sacramento before. He was a truck driver. He said, I've been driving trucks 30 years, but now I have a life sentence. But I've been up Nebraska. I've been everywhere. When you go home, leave your neighborhood. And so when this Stockton thing came up, I'm like, I'm leaving. Yeah. So then I took off to Stockton and started this internship, for like 6 months, a little longer than that.
Did it feel liberating to be on this path now?
It gave me something big. I felt like I was on to something. It gave me something big. And I think that the way I learned too, a lot of my wins or successes is based off ignorance. You don't know what you don't know. And so the way I learn, I said earlier, it's not always about money. Sometimes the first thing I don't always think about how much. Yeah. You say, hey, let's go to Waterworld. Hey, let's go to Disneyland. I said, yes. I jump at it. Yeah. And so with the real estate component, I just jumped at it, not really even seeing that, hey, I'm going to try to make this amount of money or be a top agent or be an investor and flipper, any of those things. I just saw something good. It felt good. So I acted. And my lack of knowledge or my ignorance didn't show me the potential of real estate until I was 3 years into real estate.
Really?
I swear to you.
And that was because you were just doing it off of passion and it's something new and you're intrigued by it and you're liking it.
And I'm out of Sacramento.
And you're out of Sacramento.
Here was the other trick. This was like the small trick, because I asked my parole officer, I said, listen, I'm taking an internship in Stockton, which is out of my boundary. Can you call the broker and get the thumbs up? He said, go ahead. You can do it. I don't even need to do any checkups on you. So what happened is, because I was gone from 8, I would leave the house at 7. It's an hour drive, get there at 8, get off at 5, there's traffic, and I get home till 7. Any rules that were being broken in Sacramento couldn't be by me, because I'm never home. Yeah. And that's what I liked about it, was that, like, there's no way I get in trouble.
Yeah.
The only rule I was breaking is sometimes I was speeding on the freeway because I was late.
Well,
but
did you ever get caught?
Nope.
No. So there you go. God had his hand over you and your future.
For sure. And so that was, like, honestly, that was my season of utilizing this to learn some stuff, but also put myself in a position, like the old man, Mr. Lee, said, leave your city, meet some other people, and I could always go back to Sacramento.
Yeah.
And I took a shot.
Yeah. So you familiarize yourself with real estate. You're obviously doing that, and it's very successful now, as well as your content creating. For the people that want to be home buyers in the near future, what is the benefit of them familiarizing themselves with some real estate and what it entails?
That's a great question. Very great question. I run a real estate community in which I help people to get into their first flip, learn lending, analyzing deals, things like that. And so when you ask me that question, it comes from a place of a teacher, right?
Yeah.
And so ask it to me one more time, because I want to make sure I really answer it.
What are the benefits of people learning about real estate if they're trying to buy a home in the future, or even you threw out there, to flip it? So investors, what is the overall benefit, would you say, in doing your research?
I don't think I know that real estate can make you a lot of money. And in the chapter I'm in, I'm not buying real estate to make money. I'm not buying a portfolio or growing my portfolio so I can make money. I'm growing my portfolio, making the sacrifice and doing the things so I can buy back my time. So I can position myself to spend time with you and your husband on a podcast, so my daughter can do the things she needs to do. And when I get to an older age, I don't have to do anything but what I would want to do. And so by educating yourself and getting the right knowledge and resources, that will unlock the ability for you to make the right deals and right purchases. Yeah. Because there is such thing as a bad deal in real estate, and there is such thing as a deal and then a phenomenal deal. We call it a whale or a home run. Yeah. And in real estate, you make money on the deal. You actually don't make money by, like, buying property and then you get rent paid down or mortgage paid down, deductions, things of that nature. But you really learn as you grow in it. You make a lot of money if homes in this neighborhood are going for $500,000, and you could snag one for $350,000, and you close it tomorrow. You have just walked in and elevated yourself $150,000 in equity. Wow. And so there aren't many vehicles out there or business structures that allow you to do that. Yeah. By such a discount, and then for them to be in abundant, because you can buy. There's businesses you could buy, like let's say Amazon right now. How much money would you need to buy that? Yes, it's worth some money, but a home, the mortgages and the ability to get into it and get a really good deal is something that could be taught in 20 minutes. Yeah. So let me ask you. Do you feel the impact when the economy fluctuates and people don't have the money to put up and buy the house? Like, as real estate agents or investors, are you guys impacted, like, negatively financially, or is it pretty much smooth sailing regardless of what the economy is? Even in good markets, it's not smooth sailing. Smooth sailing wouldn't be the term that would be fair. Even in very great markets during COVID, when I was flipping a property, I'd have 30 offers, right? But then once you sell the property, finding another property is difficult because now everybody wants to invest.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's always different challenges. But you said the education point. The value of education allows you to have a competitive advantage, to nestle yourself into a good deal, ultimately making the money, ultimately buying your time back, living the life you want. But when I look at tougher markets, because I mean, I think right now we could be considered a tough market. There are always deals to be had. There's always deals to be had. Somebody's always selling a home that their mother left to them, a divorce, insurance job, or somebody's moving out of town quickly.
And there's always someone willing to pay the price for the most part?
There's always somebody out there willing to pay the right price. Always.
Yeah. I've always heard a lot of good things about real estate. But like I mentioned earlier, it's always intimidated me.
You're brilliant. I don't think I know, because I mean I always do like this audit, right? The feedback loop is what it's called, with like my community that I coach and people that I network with, and I always ask them, what's the one thing holding you back in real estate? The number one thing people are going to say is the money.
Yeah.
And as you all know, through social media and other platforms, I've bought property with zero money down, so this is very doable. It's really not the money. It's the fear. And so what has worked in my favor is the moving with ignorance.
Yeah.
I was never afraid to buy. Is it for sale? How much? Okay, hold on. I'll be right back.
So in a sense, fearlessness as well.
Give it to me. Teach me. Fearlessness. The fearlessness allowed me to walk into opportunities.
Yeah.
And so, no, it's not a money factor. Most people just have to do the action.
Yeah.
And you learn as you go. And then you surround yourself with the right people too.
Yeah, well, with risk comes reward, right?
Always.
So
Always.
I love that. I love how you just narrowed all that down right now and laid it out. How did you get into the content creating? Was this something that came up as an idea as you were learning real estate? Because you are actually very good at it.
Thank
and
you.
you're very engaging.
Thank you.
I was watching some of your videos today and I was like, man. And not only that, you give a lot of free game to people who want to go into real estate or want to go into investing. I know you mentioned mentorship. Is this something that you always wanted, like you had in the back of your mind when you got into this, or something that developed as you went on, that you had this niche for social media as well?
Great question. I'm actually a pretty private person, so social media wasn't
I
something.
would have never thought.
Yeah, I'm really private. Yeah, you kind of know that. I'm kind of private. My private life is something I hold dear to me, and the people in my life I hold dear too. So social media wasn't something I was really open to. But what did happen to me is, we were talking about like your childhood and how that can project into your adulthood. When I got into real estate and I was doing an internship, the irony came in. That's important to say, is that I didn't receive a real estate license for 3 years, but I was still doing the interning. I was working alongside this broker, paying bills, unlocking houses, fixing fences, and with the hopes to get my license, because I applied for my license the first year I got into real estate, denied. Second year, denied. Third year, got denied again because of my incarceration.
Wow.
Yeah, so I kept getting, but after being in it for a year and a half and getting off parole, which was the main thing, I'm like, I'm not going back to Sacramento.
Yeah.
No. So I'll just try to apply again, and I kept learning more skills, and I was surrounded by the right people. And so those sacrifices and being around the right people really paid off. Plus, I put myself through ignorance, right, or fearlessness. I put myself 2.5 years into a style of interning and doing real estate activities that, what was I going to do in Sacramento? I burned the bridge, right?
Yeah.
So with that, I think that you got me all over the place because I'm thinking about this whole experience. I think that our childhoods are a projection of many things. So grinding in real estate, driving back and forth to Sacramento, making the sacrifices, I saw a lot of people that were already in real estate. Their parents had been in real estate. That's the thing, right? And we talk about having your father in your life, because I could think about 4 or 5 of my peers that in my journey through real estate, their parents put down $100,000 for a house in Granite Bay, $100,000 for one in Roseville, $100,000 in Lodi, and it was just me. I didn't have the income from Frenchies. There was so much I didn't, but I wanted to be a homeowner so bad. And let me tell you the truth. And I was working way harder than them. Shout out to them. But any day of the week, I was working my ass off. I mean, I wake up and drive from Sacramento, right? And I didn't have that comfort of going home to my mom or things of that nature. And so going through that process, it did hurt to see, once again, kind of like in high school, wanting to make some money to buy some Jordans. My mom couldn't afford it. I'm seeing a lot of these kids at 27 getting married. Family pays for the wedding, pays for the house, pays for the BMW. Not mad at them, but wishing that I could have some of that success too.
Yeah.
So early on, I put the money up, sold some cars, sold some Frenchies, made the sacrifices, and I bought my first property. I bought a flip, made some money off it. But I didn't sell it as a flip because I wanted to, though. That's the trick. As you learn different things in real estate, I got what's called a private money loan, hard money loan, right? That's where you have somebody with capital, right? Where they'll loan you the capital at a higher interest rate than the market, right? And they will loan the property on a distressed property, a property that's in very bad shape, understanding the risk that if you put up 20%, they'll put up the rest. And they're utilizing the house as collateral, meaning that if you default, they'll take the house. But these loans are short-term loans. They're not 30-year loans. So they'll loan you the money up to 12 months, but typically a person gets in and out of flip about 4 to 5 months. They loan you the money. They make some interest off it. They make some other fees off it. You perform your flip. You factor in those costs within your business product or your business plan, and then you sell it. I had to sell it because this loan is due in 12 months. I was already done with the flip at month like 5. But I didn't have the finances, or my mom couldn't step in and sign for me. This is what I was seeing with my peers, so I can refinance the house and keep it. So I had to sell it and take my profit. So that was my cycle for many, many years. So when people say, well, what made you want to get into flipping? I didn't have the income.
Yeah.
I didn't have somebody to sign for me. So I had to sell it to pay them back. And so much of my journey looked like that early on, until I was able to put myself in a position to have the tax returns, to have the income, and have the other components to be able to start refinancing out a property or getting, your standard loans on property.
Yeah. And during that process, is you just started documenting it?
We're talking about the social media.
Yeah.
No. So that process of wanting and not having, people in real estate, they're not going to tell you the truth. Real estate agents will tell you this.
Yeah.
Oh, you should buy this house. You'll say, oh, really? Why? It's beautiful. They'll upsell you. Right?
Yeah.
You can see your kids here.
Yeah.
Right. Or fear, FOMO. If you don't buy this one, and that never sat with me. Because back to my roots, we don't play that. I never played that with you when I first met you. So you have to keep it real. And so I didn't like that component. And then once I began to get some momentum in flipping, I realized how much harder it was for somebody like me to get into it. Meaning, my mom can't sign for me, and my mom wasn't an agent. My mom never owned her home. And so I didn't like I enjoyed breaking that curse, owning the first piece of property, but I understood what it took. The only reason why I'm in real estate is because I didn't want to go back to prison. So I dedicated a year and a half to leave Sacramento to live in Stockton, and I went through that process. I never was doing it to get a license. I wasn't going back to prison. Within that, I gained some skills and knowledge and wisdom. With that wisdom, after being off parole, I guess I'm off parole. What do? Go back to Sacramento? No, I'm buy a house now, right? Now I'm going to apply this stuff that I got. So in applying that, and when you're asking about social media, I went through a process where I learned that many people don't have access to this information resources. So I just started telling everybody, my friends, people, places, and things. My friends that were back home in Sacramento, probably doing some of the activities that got me in trouble. I'm like, bro, you can take that money, buy a house.
Yeah.
I want you to win. Like, we have to win. We can't go back to prison. I went on the other side of this fence, and yeah, some of them have a lot of resources, but we have the resources because I have the knowledge. I give it to us, and we're going to mix the money up. We're going to make it happen. And that's just how I felt about it. I took it very personal. And so since then, I've been able to help a lot of my friends from, more challenging situations like myself and many others to buy a home. And I take it personal every time.
Yeah. And I think that's why a lot of people gravitate toward you, because of that authenticity. That same authenticity that you complimented me on earlier. You're doing the same, but you're doing it with business. And that is so necessary. Financial literacy is so
Yeah.
necessary
Yeah.
to break those cycles and get ahead.
Yeah. And so let me also talk about the conversion to social media. So I was helping just different people. I was the executive director of Habitat for Humanity for a while, building homes as well. They recruited me. I was like, man, this guy can fix some homes.
Yeah.
So within that, I was teaching and helping young men get into welding so they can buy a house. That was my whole thing. Got to buy a house. Got to buy a house.
Yeah.
I would take them to some of my projects, and then I was asked to speak at an event about real estate flipping. I did, and there were some people out there doing some recording. Young man came up to me and said, "Hey, we should do some content together." I really wasn't into it. We started doing content, and it performed very, very well. I think like it had to be like the first like 90 days. One of my videos went over 1 million views.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But back to ignorance,
Yeah.
the views didn't even mean anything to me. I was just like,
Yeah.
man, we get to give out this information and be champions. And we cracked the code. Now all we have to do is show up. And that's what it allowed me to do was kind of just share my knowledge, share my testimonial.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And I feel like your videos are very informative. I know I've gone on there and I've learned a thing or two.
Thank you.
And I know that if I have questions, I just got to look through it in your profile. You'll probably have it already answered for me.
Put you on the spot. What's one thing you learned?
To use all your senses. I just watched that video today.
You made my day.
And I was like, and it was so funny because we literally just went to go see an open house, right?
Yeah.
And we went into the basement. It was like an old Victorian in downtown. And ultimately, that's where he would like to,
Nestle.
That's like, he loves downtown. So we were looking because we were like, maybe we could buy again right now, or, we'll see if we find the right home.
Right.
And we went to the basement and I was like, it smells funky down here. And then he was checking the drywall and like, looking for rot, and just because we went through that process once, and our house it wasn't updated. We've done a lot of renovations.
What did the agent tell you? And no disrespect to the agent. I mean, it's not the agent. Once you close on your property, did going through that process within the first 6 months to a year, did you learn things about your property that you didn't know prior to, but somebody should have told you?
Yeah. Like, there was just things like, the stucco on the outside, right? They had put siding on top of it. And all they did was cover the entry holes for like mice and critters and all this kind of stuff to get in from our kitchen cabinets. So then we had dealt with the mice problem. So now we're like figuring out, okay, well, there's a whole, we figured out that like they pretty much just
put a wig on a pig.
Yes. Ultimately though, I'm grateful because the property wasn't so bad that we were like, what the hell did we buy? It was definitely workable. And we just got our stucco done and we put more cement in the back, and we updated our flooring and things like that. The overall foundation is good, but there was certain things where I was just like, dang, they probably masked this to, and because we were first time home buyers, we didn't really know what we were looking for. We didn't even look. And we were young, Now I'm like, okay, there's certain things we need to check under the sinks.
Give me one more. That's why I take it personal. That's why I take it so personal, because I just, let me be me. Think about it. Like, my mom never owned a home, but the way I grew up, I had like 50 moms. Everybody's moms in my neighborhood, my mom's friends, they treat you like a kid, right? So I would never want, or my sister, I would never want my sister to buy a piece of property and go in blindfolded when I'm hiring somebody to be a professional and discover these things for me. Because money doesn't come easy. The thousands, they go fast. Yeah. So if you walk into a property, you close on the property, single mom, single dad, or both parents there, but our income, we're just getting by. This is our biggest dream. We spend all of our money and resources on our biggest dream. We close the deal. 30 days later, now we're exposed to $17,000, $18,000, $30,000 in things that we did not know. And it's called a material fact in real estate. If we had known, would we have made this decision?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, too, one of the biggest things I learned is I'll probably pay for my own inspection.
100%.
And I'll probably, like, pick the inspector's mind, like, hey, I'm paying you to tell me what's wrong with this property, instead of, like, going with, like, oh, we work with this inspection company, you feel me? Because I'm like, okay.
Yeah, see?
Y'all overlook
That's
a little
the buddy
things
system.
here and there,
It's the buddy system. It's the buddy.
I believe
at whose experience. But look, get an inspector, but let's just do this. Next time you get ready to score in the house, call me. I'll pick that thing apart quick.
Okay, I will. I will take you up on that offer.
Yeah.
Because the next house I want it to be upgraded and like our forever home.
Mm-hmm.
We want to still keep this house. We want to keep it for the
As
kids. But
income generating.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely. Well, before we close out, I want to ask you, what is the biggest lesson you've learned from life?
From life?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. Okay. It's actually easy. I have learned in life that we are very fortunate to be able to experience life. And life comes with ups and downs. The downs, as you get older, can be from people that let you down. But the best way to live my life, and I've learned through life, is not be so disappointed or frustrated with the people that let me down or I don't agree with, but to rejoice and be thankful for the people that I have currently, the people that are filling my cup currently. Mm-hmm. I'm in this room right now with two very special people. I don't talk to you both frequently because I don't see you there frequently, but I just love you guys' life. And to be able to sit here and have my cup filled, I'm a pretty busy person, right?
Yeah.
There was no freaking way I was gonna miss this cup filling because I already knew how it was gonna go. And so the lesson I learned is be grateful for the people you do have, even if it's one. Because like my mom says, you can do a lot with a little. We have mics and water and four walls, and it's cracking in here.
It is. I love that. Well, Jacob, thank you so much.
Thank you for having
taking
me.
the time
Thank you
and
for
coming
having
and joining. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this and learned something. Go check his page out. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Real Estate Jake 100. I also have a podcast called Jacob Davenport called Growing Your Real Estate. I'm on all the other platforms as well. And so if you're looking to grow in real estate, learn, educate yourself, and make some big moves, let's get connected.
Amen. All right, you guys. Enjoy. Bye-bye.